Help me, oh help me. For only a brief while ago I hung red, and yet erect in the world of wide, white, reticent backgrounds, against which I registered, correctly placed as if pointing out a direction downwards towards which all must fall. I stood firm. I beat out the cut time which we always hope we have to count on. More surely than as an emblem cut into a thick-skinned tree transfixed by a dart, perhaps I shun and signified. Being all crimson and heraldic, as I was and near kin to the promiscuous scarlet pits of cards, I was unyielding, and if conventional, then surely constant. But as I stood in my round-shouldered pride, you struck. Some fell impulse seized me as if for a moment the surface I clung to had gone blank like that, as if a glimpse of folded arm or breast or thigh curved under itself, plunging deep into its own shadow, had unhung me quite, or as if some loss as of dry leaves blown across marble corridors is felt for an instant. Even while unseen, I fell, tripping over a minute lapse in life's surface. I fell heavily, indeed flipped over, and now I lie bleeding on my sheet, a sick Valentine, whose short of breath can barely sigh, be mine. Before I fell, for even the short while that will be forever. Lying here I have blackened some, impelled, yet recognizable for what I am, and unable to leave I rest uneasy. Fever warms me up towards evening, after failure of nerve has made the noon too bright to bear, bringing in place of sleep a sense of something wrong, something half unbroken, like a heart. And that was Crise de Coeur by John Hollander. So I'm going to be talking about this poem and give some background on it, and then I'm going to go line by line, section by section, explaining my interpretations of it. So this poem was published in Hollander's book, Types of Shape. It was published back in 1969, and he did all this with a typewriter. And in this book, he explains his process a little bit and how he had some artists draw outlines for him. And yeah, he used a typewriter. I've never really used a typewriter before, so I'm not going to go into detail about how all of that probably went down. But he avoided using certain kinds of shapes. He avoided using shapes with holes in them. And for this poem, he avoided the regular Valentine's heart like this, and instead he had it rotated 90 degrees. And once he did that, that made it a fallen heart, not a broken one, not quite a broken heart. So now I'm going to get into my line by line, section by section analysis. So the first few lines: help me, oh help me, for only a brief while ago I hung red. Right off the bat, there's no time wasted with getting to what's happening in the poem, a heart attack. And I feel like that's a cool imagery right there. We already know it's a heart, so there's this simple phrase, hung red, being used. And to me, it's kind of like he's juxtaposing an actual real heart with the hearts that we have for Valentine's Day, like this. And yeah, it's just a heart attack happening right away. So moving forward, and yet erect in a world of wide, white, reticent backgrounds, against which I registered. So that already is developing this really strong cadence, and there's a lot of good alliteration, assonance with the W and the I sounds. Wide, world of wide, white, reticent backgrounds. I love that. Some of my favorite lines, but I feel like it's kind of ironic that he uses reticent for the white background. Usually a red heart is on a white background, but for this poem he used white space to a great extent to write the poem. Next few lines: currently placed as if pointing out a direction downwards towards which all must fall. So in the previous lines and in these lines, there's this magnification of these small things, and he does that to add a lot more weight and the sense of, a heart attack occurring. I imagine when someone has a heart attack, they're gripping their chest and probably falling to the floor. And yeah, he's just really going all in on this heart shape. So let's keep moving. I stood firm. I beat out the cut time, which we always hope we have to count on. More surely than as an emblem cut into a thick-skinned tree, transfixed by a dart, perhaps I shone and signified. So that right there is one of my favorite parts of the poem. I stood firm, I beat out the cut time, which, yeah, I feel like that's pretty self-explanatory. Then we have this more surely than as an emblem cut into a thick-skinned tree, transfixed by a dart. So to me, that's the beginning of this layering of heart images with the poem itself, the downward pointing motion that he pointed out of the heart shape, and then the heart that lovers would etch onto a tree. And in that line, he uses transfixed instead of etched or made to add more meaning. Not that it's just put on the tree, but it's the tree's been pierced and it's a thick-skinned tree, and the heart shape is impaled on it. So just making it more impactful. It's the heart attack, you know? So moving forward, we get being crimson and heraldic as I was and near kin to the promiscuous scarlet pips of cards. Oh yeah, before I start explaining that line, the lines before, cut into a thick-skinned tree, transfixed by a dart. That's some more cool alliteration right there, you know? But okay, being all crimson and heraldic as I was and near kin to the promiscuous scarlet pips. So the clovers and the hearts and the spades on the playing cards are also called pips. And I guess they're promiscuous because they're on more than one card. And that means that this heart was going around the block a few times. I don't know. Maybe, maybe not. It says near kin, so. And then we have, I was unyielding, and if conventional, then surely constant. So always beating, right? Not stopping. And if the heart was following the rules, he was constant. But as I stood in my round-shouldered pride, you struck. And right there, that is the only part of the poem where we have some kind of direct address or use of second person. And then it goes on with some fell impulse seized me, as if for a moment the surface I clung to had gone blank like that. So some fell impulse. So fell could mean clever in a way, and it's more of a poetic meaning. And in that way, it's like the heart is saying, you know, I'm a unstoppable heart. Like I'm always beating, but there's something figured out how to stop me. So it's some fell impulse. It seized me as if for a moment the surface I clung to had gone blank like that. And it's like, this is where the heart attack happens. And now we have that, we're getting into that falling of the heart. And boy, does that falling not stop until it stops. Moving forward, as if a glimpse of folded arm or breast or thigh curve under itself, plunging deep into its own shadow, had unhung me quiet. So just keeping that all of a sudden stopping realization of, oh, I'm stopping, I'm falling to the floor or whatever, keeping that going, that imagery. Or as if some lost as of dry leaves blown across marble corridors. So, you know, leaves on the ground just being swept away like that. That's how the heart's feeling. Was felt for an instant, even while unseen. I fell tripping over a minute lapse in life's surface. I felt heavily, indeed flipped over. So this is where we're getting to the heart, getting like this, getting into this position. So now I lie bleeding on my sheet, a sick Valentine whose shorter breath can barely sigh, be mine. We all have those heart candies that had be mine etched into them, right? Before I fell for even a short while, that will be forever. That most people would probably say is obvious or something like that, but I like it. I like that line a lot. Before I fell, for even a short while that will be forever. Bars, you know? Lying here, I've blackened and some. Uh, sorry. Lying here, I've blackened some, impelled, yet recognizable for what I am, and unable to leap, I rest uneasy. Fever warms me up towards evening after failure of nerve has made a noon too bright to bear, bringing in place of sleep a sense of something wrong, something half unbroken, like a heart. So in the notes section of this book, Hollander mentions how you can still put some parts of the poem or the whole poem into meter, and it can just be hidden. And on a few first reads of this poem, you probably could feel a little confused about where to stop and where to begin a line, but there are words that are capitalized, or the first letter is capitalized, where it gives you a sense of punctuation, but there's no punctuation throughout the poem. But right here, kind of getting ahead of myself, I just wanted to point out how there's like this iambic meter going on at the end that gives the effect of like the heart really stopping and on its last beat, bringing in place of sleep a sense of something wrong, something half unbroken, like a heart. And that was Crise de Coeur. That last whole section to me was like super raw poetry, beast mode poetry. And yeah, I like this poem a lot. The rhythm in it, the cadence in it, and the slant rhyming, the internal rhyming, all of that makes it a super great poem. Should have posted this on Valentine's Day, but you know, you got it now. So thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you learned a little bit about shape poems and you try to write some yourself. I got an interest in it from reading this poetry dictionary that my dad gave me a while back. But yeah, that's the end of the video. So till next time.